Hi everyone, one of my tweets about XRP accidentally stirred up a hornet's nest. Honestly, I didn't expect it to blow up like this, but for the second time in a few months, Binance, Bitget, OKX and other media outlets started covering my analysis on XRP. My DMs and comment sections flooded with, let's call it, passionate voices. So I figured it's time to make a video to calmly and systematically break down in details my main point. Why banks, at this stage, aren't really holding or using XRP and why it won't happen anytime soon. So before we dive in, let me set a few things straight to avoid any confusion. First, I totally get that XRP tech, the ODL model, it's way smarter in many ways than the clunky old school Swift system. I agree with you on that. Second, everything I'm about to say comes from a realistic look at how the ancient banking industry works. Its rules and risk tolerance. Not because I'm some Bitcoin fanboy. I'm not here to bash XRP. In fact, I like a lot the vision. But vision isn't adoption. Rules, risk, capital and trust always come first in finance. And right now, XRP doesn't check enough of the boxes for the big players, that's all. But that doesn't mean we can ignore XRP's limitation either. We definitely shouldn't be like those hyped up evangelists shouting about XRP to 589 with no responsibility. Any price prediction that ignores basic value and cash flow isn't analysis either. It's fortune telling. Our job is to invest. We have money in it. We cannot wish on a star. So, regarding today's topic, here is my core stance. Supporting XRP's tech vision doesn't mean I think it will get to 589. Saying banks don't want to hold or use XRP doesn't mean the project is worthless. To understand why banks are hesitant, we first need to fairly look at the other side, the awesome vision XRP supporters are pitching. Their case rests on three big pillars. The first pillar is freeing up trapped capital. Picture the global banking system like an outdated, inefficient logistic network. Say a US bank wants to send money to a client in Japan. It can't just ship dollars over, It has to pre-fund a yen account with a partner bank in Japan called a correspondent account. To handle international payments, banks tie up billions in various currencies in these accounts worldwide. That money is stuck. It can't be lent out or invested. It's dead capital. XRP's ODL model lets banks convert their local currency to XRP in seconds, send it, and convert it to the target currency instantly. This could free up those trapped billions for higher return activities, boosting banks' favorite metric, the return on equity ROE. So yes, that's great. The second pillar is it would slash operational costs. The old Swift system is a hassle. A single transfer might go through 3 or 4 intermediary banks, each taking a cut, so fees can hit dozens of dollars. Plus, the process is slow and fixing errors means pricey manual audits. XRP transactions nearly point to point, costing less than a penny. It's like jumping from snail mail with stamps and endless post offices to instant messaging online. This could seriously cut banks' payment processing costs. So yes, that's great. And then the third pillar is it would help them gain a competitive edge. Swift slowness has given fintechs like Wise and Revolut room to thrive, and banks are losing ground. I like Wise personally. I really like them. It's really convenient and it's fast. XRP's near instant settlement could let banks launch cool new services like real-time supply chain financing for businesses, or competing head-on and fintech in personal transfers. It's not just defense, it's a chance to fight back. So yeah, I totally see why XRP fans are so confident. Their story hit every pain point of the traditional banking system. It's a compelling pitch, no question. But here is the thing, they might be seriously underestimating two realities. First, how much banks hate risk. And second, there is a huge gap between a perfect tech solution in theory and getting it adopted in the real world. Because in the real world, before we dig in, we have to clear up things XRP fans often bring up. Let's start with accounting rule changes. Starting in 2025, new fair value accounting rules kick in. Basically, they make crypto bookkeeping simpler, but also mean any wild price swings in crypto hit banks' profit statement directly. For an industry obsessed with stable earnings, that's a hard pass. XRP supporters might say, exactly, that's why ODL is genius. Banks don't have to hold XRP, so it solves the problem. But here is the million-dollar question. If ODL neatly sidesteps the risks of holding XRP, why aren't banks rushing to use it? The answer? Technical feasibility is just the first step in a long journey. Even a flawless ID has to overcome massive strategic, operational and compliance hurdles. So let's see here the 4 big reasons banks are still holding back, even if they don't have to hold XRP themselves. The first reason, is the path dependency and Swift's evolution, you know. I've dealt with banks a ton. When I was younger, I even worked in a bank for a short while. As I worked in my import-export business and later in crypto, I had to go back and forth with funds managers, branch heads, even CEOs. A few days ago, I was with people from the biggest banks in the world in Hong Kong and even people from Swift. So let me be clear, I know their game. It's funny and it's very sad at the same time because you can put it up in one sentence. If it ain't completely broken, don't mess with it. That's just it. Swift may be old, but it's been pretty much rock solid for 50 years. It's the financial system's muscle memory. Plus, Swift's been upgrading with Swift GPI, which isn't as fast or cheap as ODL, but improves tracking and transparency within the existing system. For banks, a familiar, low-risk gradual upgrade beats a revolutionary overhaul that rethinking everything. And don't forget central bank CBDCs, you know, those cross-border projects. They would prefer those regulator-backed and way less risky solutions than a private crypto asset, and they would prefer that 100 times over. And then there are the new risks. ODL avoids bank holding XRP, but it introduces new headaches. Counterparty risk. Banks have to rely on third-party crypto exchanges or market makers for real-time liquidity. Their compliance team start asking tough questions. Are these exchanges as tightly regulated as we are? Are their operations secure? What if they collapse like FTX? Building trust and doing due diligence with these crypto world partners is a long, expensive process. Plus, regulators don't care about technicalities. If money flows through your system and something goes wrong, the bank is on the hook. Banks have to ensure the entire transaction chain complies with anti-money laundering rules. In today's messy global crypto regulatory landscape, who can guarantee that? It's a compliance minefield. As long as XRP's legal status isn't 100% clear worldwide, banks' compliance departments will keep flashing red lights. And yes, let's talk about the costs. You can think of a bank IT system as a tangled mess of decades-old spaghetti code. Integrating a new Chinese, blockchain-based API into this legacy system is a massive project, costing tens or even hundreds of millions and taking years. Banks execs have to wait it coldly. Will sinking this much cash and risk into overhauling our core system pay off enough? And the answer is often too uncertain. And let's talk about ODL and network effects, liquidity depth. Swift's biggest strength is its unbeatable network. 200 plus countries, over 11,000 institutions. For ODL to win, it needs a global liquidity network just as deep. ODL might work fine for big currency pairs like USD, Euro, but banks need a solution that covers all their global business, not just the popular routes. For less common currency corridors, ODL's liquidity is still too thin. Until its global network matures, it's just a helpful add-on for banks, not a full Swift replacement. And by the way, let's set up just one last argument. Every time someone brings up that Swift is working with Ripple already, or Swift said banks will use XRP, I just smile because the actual CIO of Swift publicly replied to XRP defenders on LinkedIn, and his words couldn't be clearer. Institutions don't want to live on a competitor's rail. Surviving lawsuits isn't resilience. Compliance isn't about one company convincing regulators. It's about the entire industry agreeing on shared standards. That's not a rumor. It's not speculation. It's straight from the source. So next time, someone from XRP says Swift is going to use XRP, maybe ask them if they actually read what Swift say themselves. You can't put words into the mouth of someone, especially when they explicitly say the contrary. So let's wrap this up with a metaphor to make sense of the XRP bank standoff. Think of ODL and XRP as a cutting-edge, super-fast sport car. Swift, it's the global highway system. Bumpy in places, but familiar to everyone. XRP fans say banks don't need to drive the car themselves. We've got drivers, liquidity providers. They are ready. But that misses the real issue. Banks, as city planners, they see it differently. To let this sport car zoom, they would need to rebuild the entire highway system with system integration. They would need to rewrite traffic laws for compliance, and they would need to build a ton of new gas stations, liquidity network. Even if they don't drive, the cost and uncertainty of overhauling the whole city traffic system is why they are hesitating. So banks are fine testing this car on a few trial roads, yes, but they aren't ready to tear down the 50-year-old highway network. A company's ambition is admirable, but as investors, we don't bet on ambition. Our job is to weigh the odds of success based on real-world rules. For banks, it's not about the tech, it's about rules, inertia, and trust. Those are the real deal breakers. So the harsh reality, the odds of banks widely adopting XRP in the next few years are pretty low. And by the way, after my thread on X went viral, I saw all kinds of reactions. Some tried to discredit my banker's sources, some said, "You don't get it," or "You are a liar," then repeated the brochure, the XRP brochure, word for word. And others just post memes or called me Bitcoin Maxi, and because I like Bitcoin, then everything I say is wrong. It's like when people are talking about politics, but very few actually challenged the data and the facts I laid out. So what do you think? Can these real-world hurdles I've laid out be overcome in the next few years? And if yes, please tell me how. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm Cédric, and I'll catch you in the next video.